welcome back for another voiceover book review. I promise one day I will be back on camera, but for right now, it is just not gonna happen. So this is how we're gonna communicate for a minute. So today we are talking about a book that I can't remember the title, but you will see it on the screen. It's like the Occult book or something like that. And this book, it is one that my husband picked. So sometimes when I have a bunch of books pick up from the library, I release the husband to go get them because I don't want to leave the warm car. And so he will go get them for me that I've got on hold. And then he'll meander and he'll find other books. And this was one of those. And he was intrigued at it and thought I should read it and see if it's good or not. So here we are. So this book is interesting. It's set up in a way where there's really half of a book. So every page, one side of the book is a picture that goes with the text, and the other half is text. And that's it. And each page is dedicated to a different small little section of knowledge or a person or a group or whatever for the occult. And these are very, very, very brief. I mean, can you really summarize any historical figure in like one page? I didn't like sit and actually count out the words, but I feel like the word count's probably like 500 words to maybe 1,000-ish per page, which is really not a lot. And so it ends up reading kind of like if you scrolled through like a history TikTok channel, where it just gives you like a little brief, and then it's just like a couple of minutes about it, and that's it. And so if you want to dive deeper, this is just kind of a starting off point to get you mildly intrigued. I mean, summarizing the tarot on one page, that's kind of hard to do. The Freemasons, one page, kind of hard to do. But it goes over kind of the earliest recordings that they decided to pick, which was like in ancient Greece. And then it eventually goes through all of the times to kind of the present. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 because it's an interesting concept, but also I feel like the first part was pretty well paced for, you know, different parts of the world, kind of for the occult, and talking about different groups and different people and all of these things. Some people are a little ticked that in other reviews there's not a lot of women represented, but also I feel like we got to remember that like women didn't have rights for like so freaking long, so that kind of checks out. Like, I don't think there was a lot to choose from in the past because women were thought of as second-class citizens for so long. So it is kind of hard to like find those figures. I don't know, maybe they exist and the author just glazed over them. But these were like kind of the main ones you would expect, and a few different ones. There were a couple women throughout, but not a whole lot, because again, I really don't think there was a lot given to women in history to use. But it had a lot starting from the ancient world, and like ancient Greece in particular, and it kind of, I mean, it had other things too. Like there was a town that was kind of between like the Roman Empire, and I think it was like the Persian Empire or something. And it was like kind of this like little tiny town that like the pagans could run off to, and like the Christians that didn't quite align with like what the Christians were doing, and like it was just like a little safe haven spot because it was just kind of in the middle of all of these empires, and so it was just like a trading spot, so everyone was just kind of chill for a long time there. And so like that was kind of cool. Didn't know about that, but like the ancient part, it was pretty good because again, ancient history can be really hard and really complex, and there's not a lot of information. The thing is, when you get to the modern age, it's like the author got bored with the project. And like once we start hitting the names that we would know as modern people in the occult world, in the New Age world, in Wicca, in modern paganism, you know, we're like, oh cool, we're gonna see our names now, like our people. No, you hit the spiritualists of like the 1800s, and then it's like, cool, bleh, and then you're at the end. Like, it seriously felt like there was like maybe 5 pages for modern. Like, it was just not a lot. Because you've got Margaret Alder and Starhawk. I think they were actually on the same page. Like, just a brief, like, oh, and then they did this. You've got one page for Gerald Gardner, but none of the others from like that era. And you've got what's her name, Margaret Murray or something like that. The person that kind of handpicked history and like really changed the course of like what Wicca's history looks like when we're supposedly looking back, and you're like, actually that's not true. But it's like so deeply ingrained that it's so hard to start picking it out and be like, actually that's not true. That wasn't a thing. But again, one page. And then it jumps to, like, it doesn't include so many of like the modern names, like Cunningham or Buckland or Silver Ravenwolf. Like, there are some big names that were not included. And it's like, they were kind of like, there's a lot of influential ones you could be talking about in the modern world instead of these randoms from the past in the ancient world. Why are we ignoring the modern existence, like the past 100 years? Why is it so summarized so briefly when that's the one we have the most information on? What? And so that was really disappointing, because there was also a lot for like American history and American things. So it's like, ah, cool, like Triumph of the Moon really focused just on like the UK and like that history. So cool, we're gonna get some for us over here. And no, we got gypped. And then the book ends with 2012. And it's like the stupidest ending. And like throughout the book, there were a couple lines that I'm like, okay, the author's kind of being a bit biased. Just the word choice for certain things where I had to reread a few of them. I'm like, God, I mean, I guess maybe I'm just reading it with a chip on the shoulder. I don't know. But like, it was just this thing of like, oh, those idiot pagans. And like, oh, who would ever believe that? And why are they clinging to these things? And that, it's like, okay, I guess, because like, yeah, our pagan ancestors were assholes too, just like our Christian ancestors were also assholes. Just every part of the globe, we had asshole ancestors. I've said it before, I'll say it again. No part of the world has ancestors that were like completely good people. Like every single group of humans ever, there have been assholes. Whether it was accepted at the time or not, in modern context, they were all assholes. So, like, I can appreciate that, like, yeah, when you're comparing them, sure. But also, it was kind of painting the Christians, like, oh, they're cool, it's chill, like, whatever. And then it's like, oh, like, I know they had, like, some bad apples. And then it was just, like, this thing of, like, I don't know, it felt like he was kind of treating the pagans as, like, especially when they were trying to revive it, of, like, oh, can you believe they're still trying to do that? I don't know. It was just, like, this vibe that I got. It was like, I don't know, like, so that was kind of my thing. But by the time you get to the very end and you get to 2012, it was like, God, can you believe these weirdos thinking that 2012 is like going to be the end of the world? And it's like, not most pagans actually thought that. Actually, there was a very fringe, small group that thought that. And like, that's not even just like the online. I mean, like online, every single, like that was my like heyday of hunting for groups. So I was in a lot around the world. Like, I was in communication with people from various continents and locally. Guarantee it was a very small fringe of the majority who were thinking the world's going to end in 2012, who were in the New Age, occult, pagan, Wiccan spaces. That's not, it was like an ending of an era. A lot of people considered it like, okay, this is the official dawning of the new, like, astrological era. Where like we're moving out of the Pisces era and into the Aquarius, because like that one goes backwards through the signs. Like that was kind of more of the argument, but not like the world's actually going to end. And it's like, who knows if like this new age thing is like even gonna last anyways? Who's to say? Like, it was just like a really snarky end to the book. And it was just like, it just left such a bitter taste in the mouth reading it. You're like, what the hell was this book? Because again, the first part starts off pretty good, pretty strong of like, okay, I get it. It's more of like an introduction. Because it's very big, complex things. Cool. Just like a brief, like, hey, here's this, cool. And then, you know, it kind of makes Triumph of the Moon be like, okay, when you're ready to like advance, go to that kind of a book. But for now, we're just like introducing you to it. But by the time you get to the end, it's like, what happened? Like, you were starting off so good, and then you just like, I could see not having a lot of information for the ancient world, because again, like, it's hard to find ancient information. But then you get to the modern, where it's very easy to find this information. Some of the people are still alive. Like, there was no mention for like the big strides we've made, Like, for like Wiccans, but a lot of pagans also kind of got lumped into it, but like Wiccans being able to win for the military to have like our religious symbols on graves and to have them on the dog tags and stuff, like, no mention to that. Why would that be a thing? Like, we've made strides, but of course that's not included in the history. And it's like, that should have maybe been included. If you're gonna include Wicca, that's like a big part that was recent. So overall, by the time I got to the end, I was very disappointed. But the beginning was okay. But I'm also not like a deep dive hardcore nerd, so I don't know, maybe I missed some stuff. I don't know. But anyways, so I would recommend this if you are interested more in specifically like the occult in like a very broad term, for like wanting to learn about numerology and astrology and like the Kabbalah and all of the things in like the biggest overview ever. And again, in like a written way of like instead of watching TikToks about it, especially on like when they used to have the lower time limit, like quick like TikToks on the subject and then just move on. That kind of an energy, but in written form, this book is for you. If you want to deep dive into the history, especially more modern history, easily pass. It doesn't have that much. You're gonna find more just reading the books yourselves. So I would love to know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons. If you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it's patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, blessed be.